Good evening, everyone. Chris here with Jägerbombs Fantasy Sports, Fanshare Sports, and DFSR.com for a new show looking at some primetime showdowns here. Thursday night football, we got Commanders and the Bears. Going to get rolling here in just a few minutes, talking some picks, let some more people filter in here. Got some links to share. For anyone that isn't a member, I have a link here. You can jump into our Discord for free. Check out our free trial. We do have a couple of our channels that are open right now for September. It's October. Here is the link here. That is our Discord. Yeah. Hey, Bob, how's it going? Pretty ugly game and making it a little bit uglier here just right off the start. Looking at the weather, we've got some wind issues early in the game at least to start. Kind of watching the pregame here. And a little bit of wind. Looks like it's about 20 to 25 mile an hour sustained. And then we're looking at about, there's gusts. It looks like upwards of 35 to 40 miles an hour, which is kind of like the weather I have outside right now for the last 2 or 3 days. And I'm currently dealing with a mouse in the house. So if you hear any screaming, that's probably my wife or child up in the kitchen. Been dealing with that. Can't catch a little bugger, but we'll get it here eventually. So let's talk some football here. I'm going to talk some showdown. I'm going to talk some props. Going to talk some PrizePicks plays. I think that is not going to be the right link that I shared there. So just let me get rid of that one, and I will get you the correct link. Jump into the Discord right here. We go. We'll grab the correct link. Hey, Kenny, how's it going? So yeah, could be an ugly game. We're used to these low-scoring, ugly primetime games here recently. So like I said, we've got the Commanders versus the Bears. I'm going to get rid of this. We'll jump into cheat sheet here. One injury note with Carson Wentz, he's dealing with a little bit of a bicep issue. I'm going to talk about how that's going to affect some of my own personal lineup building. I'm going to kind of build my rankings out like I usually do on the sheet, just live with you guys, kind of going through my process here. So right now, I believe I've got the line at Washington -1, road favorite here. I think that has moved to -1.5. Just here over the last hour, there's about 60% of the money on Chicago, and 60% of the tickets are coming in. 63% of the bets are coming in on Chicago as well. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I haven't really decided if I'm going to be betting the spread, or I think we can get about, I'm just going to check here in my book right now. We're sitting at Chicago +1.5 is -111. Washington -1.5 is -105. Chicago money line is +105 and Washington is -114. The total right now is sitting at 38, with the juice slightly on the over at -106. I'm not sure. The wind is supposed to die down probably going into the second half, maybe even late in the first half. So I don't think it's going to be a problem in the second half. But early on, I think Chicago could probably get the lead. They're probably going to feed David Montgomery early on. Kind of control that clock. And with Wentz's overall, with that arm issue, and then something else I wanted to look at here right away. I talk about this NFL Savant site a lot. And what I plugged in here was deep balls, deep left, right, and middle, just to kind of see what these defenses are giving up in terms of deep balls. Well, Chicago is way down here the other end. They're not giving up a lot of deep balls whatsoever. Washington's about in the middle, maybe a little bit below average in terms of giving up the deep ball as well, but we know Justin Fields doesn't really throw it that far. So I do have some top props for tonight that I'm going to go over. They kind of correlate with the DFS plays that I'm going to be looking at as well. I'm going to build out some lineups here, and again, I'm going to go over my top plays. So if you have any questions, make sure to throw them up in chat. And for anyone that is new and want to get in, jump in, grab the cheat sheet. For Sundays, I have picks, rankings, PrizePicks plays, top bets, access into Discord. You can get an NFL package for $10 a month. That's US dollars over at patreon.com/Jägerbombs. Okay, so top plays, like I said, we got some wind early on. So I've kind of leaning towards as my top. Terry McLaurin was right up there to begin with. I like the running quarterbacks with Justin Fields, in the captain spot. And if we're looking at that, Fields is third most expensive. Carson Wentz is at the top. David Montgomery is kind of right there in the middle. Right now, just with the, looking at the target share for the Washington offense, Curtis Samuel is kind of where I'm sitting at in terms of safety, at least for cash games, as my favorite captain. I've talked about him in the past, looking at these wide receivers, looking at the ADOT, which is average depth of target. He's at 4.5. So he catches a lot of the balls close to the line of scrimmage. So with the wind combined with Carson Wentz, maybe with a little bit of a bicep issue, not at 100%, I think Curtis Samuel presents the best safety in terms of pass catchers for Washington. And being that he is, in terms of his price here, he is 6th in pricing in terms of the captain spot. So I'm going to go ahead and plug him in as my top captain here tonight. I think Chicago, Fields likes to run. I always like a quarterback that is going to run the ball. He has a good matchup here. If we go look at the overall matchup, we've got Washington's weakness on defense, big splits here. They are 6th in DVOA versus the rush, while they're 29th against the pass. Not that I think that Justin Fields is going to go out and throw 300 yards. That's very unlikely, but I do think he can probably eclipse the 200-yard mark, probably run. I think he's probably going to get 5 to 10 rushing attempts in this game. What has he got so far this season? 11, 8, 8, 7, and 8. Yeah, so 5 to 10 is probably a pretty safe range, probably in that average of that 7 or 8. I do like the running quarterback, so he's probably going to be my number 2 if we are talking top captains. Fits in there nice as well. So I'm going to go plug him in as my number 2. And then number 3 is a little bit difficult. In terms of what I do each week is I'm playing one lineup in my primetime showdowns, and about 80% of that goes towards my cash games. I'm going to open up another tab for DraftKings here, and we're going to go ahead and look at some contest selection tonight. So if we jump into NFL and we go showdown and pick that game out, first thing I go and look at is the 50-50s and double ups. I like these single entry double ups. There's a lot of them here left, so I'll go in these 5s, 25s, 10s, somewhere in there. I'm not even up to the 50s yet. Just kind of got back into the routine of playing the one lineup, and probably going to play about $30, $40 in cash, and then about $5 to $10 in single entry GPPs to $5, something like that. So that's kind of what I got loaded here. Samuel, and then I like Fields in there as well. Another top one that I like is Darnell Mooney. Probably not in the captain spot, but I'm going to have some exposure to him. Brian Robinson was announced the starter earlier today for Washington. So we're going to have, in my estimation, he may be the starter, but I don't think it's going to be, like bell cow type work for him in the backfield just quite yet. He's probably going to get a little bit more than Gibson, but McKissick's probably going to still be in there for the passing down work. Going to talk about him as a prop play here in a little bit. So it's kind of a 3-headed monster. So I'm not going to be putting any of those guys. Even if I was building like 20 max or something, probably not going to put any of those 3 running backs in my captain spot tonight. I would probably go with Montgomery is going to be my number 3 captain on this slate. He came back from injury last week. Didn't have the greatest game. He only 12 rushes for 20 yards, 1.7 average is absolutely terrible. He did get in the end zone, which did save the day if you played him. But what I like to see is that he got 4 targets, caught them all, got 62 yards in the passing game. So he's getting involved there. While Khalil Herbert, who had a good week the week before, he only ran 4 for 11 and got 0 targets last week. So they are going back to Montgomery as their guy. So I definitely like Montgomery as my number 3. So now we've got 3 expensive guys in there. It's going to leave us a 5,700 average. So we're probably going to have to look for, I'm just going to go ahead and plug in my next ranked guys. Carson Wentz, I'm going to want in there. Darnell Mooney, I talked about. He's going to be high on my list. Same with Terry McLaurin. With Jahan Dotson and Logan Thomas out for Washington, I think Curtis Samuel's going to get the most, like I said, and that's why he's my top captain, especially with the wind, like I said, and the Wentz, a little bit of a injury with his bicep. I think Samuel's going to get top, and then McLaurin. If we want to look at tight ends here, John Bates and Cole Turner. We don't have Cole Turner. It's kind of hard to project him. He had 3 targets last week. Didn't catch any of them. I know Dane absolutely loves him from college in Nevada. So he's only 200. So he's going to be like my punt play. I'm probably going to put him a little bit more down in the rankings. Same with Bates, McLaurin, Mooney. Going to have some Gibson, some McKissick, and some Brian Robinson. I haven't updated the projection there. It is live over on the DFSR site, and we will look at that. So if you got some questions, if anyone's in here from DFSR, have any questions about the DFSR Player Lab / optimizer here, hit me up with that as well. We're going to talk some single game Washington here as well. I will run the initial lineup and we will see where we're at over on DFSR right now. Captain, we've got MVP, We've got Wentz. I know Doug isn't really as concerned as I am about his bicep. And then we got Curtis Samuel, John Bates, and then we got the Washington defense and Fields in there. So I'm okay with that. That's just not where I am going. Over on DraftKings, looking at the captain mode, jumping into the Washington-Chicago game. And now with DraftKings, you have to lock a player and X a player out. So I'm going to go Samuel. I'm going to go and lock him in. I'm going to jump over to the flex. And what I always do is go down to the bottom and X one of these guys out. And it gives us a Bears defense with Samuel, Carson Wentz. So it gives us double quarterbacks, double defense, which has worked out quite well. It gives us Terry McLaurin, 2 pass catchers with Wentz, no pass catchers with Fields here. I'm okay with that in cash games. I think that could work. I probably want to get some Darnell Mooney in there. And now if you want to build for cash games, like I said, we talked about, scroll down here to that $200 punt play. Cole Turner, putting him in there allows you a ton of flexibility here. I think you can go with Mooney. So you get Fields, Montgomery, and Mooney. You're pretty much getting all those touchdowns in Chicago. You got Turner and Samuel. You can't go Wentz, but you can definitely get McLaurin in there as well. Kind of makes for a nice, that's might be the way I go in cash games right now. We're going to have to wait and see, but that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. Let's go and update the rest of these. I'm going to have some John Bates in there. I do like the Bears defense a little bit more. We talk about it each and every week on the Sunday live show that Wentz is just a turnover monster. So that gives us a nice floor and upside for the Bears defense here. So I definitely like that in there. Probably going to have that a little bit higher. Going to be down like McKissick because of his passing. So he's going to be ahead of those guys. Brian Robinson definitely going to have some upside at 6,600. Gibson at 86 is definitely going to be down on my list here. Cole Kmet is probably going to see some ownership tonight. He's fairly cheap. He's actually got, if we go look at Kmet, 3 and 4 targets, 40 plus yards in 2 of his last 3. So there's not a lot of upside there. I think for cash games, you could sneak him in there. But myself, I'd rather have Bates at 3K than Kmet at 5,200. We'll just look at Bates' card here real quick. 3 for 339 last week. So they're about the same player in my view, looking at it that way. So I'm definitely going to have it there with him just because of the price savings there. Diami Brown, he had a big week last week. He caught, I think it was a 52-yard pass, hit for 105 yards. Now, the problem with him is, 1, the wind. 2, Wentz probably isn't going to be throwing as far with it. Again, I'm going back to that bicep problem. But what we see with him, he's kind of a GPP only play here, just simply because you look at his ADOT, it's 25.3. So he's the deep ball guy. We usually look at guys like Darnell Mooney or even Terry McLaurin who are catching the ball, deep pass guys. Those are what we're relying on, is those deep balls. Well, the problem with him is not only that. If we go and look at here, like I said, Chicago is 7th fewest yards on deep passes this season, so they're not giving up a lot of deep stuff. So combine all those factors that kind of go against the deep ball for Carson Wentz tonight, kind of has me the Bears defense a little bit more than like a Wentz Diami Brown matchup there. And that's kind of why I like Curtis Samuel. He is catching the ball within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And if we look at his yak yards here as well, he's got 281 air yards plus yak yards. So he's catching the ball close to the line of scrimmage, and then he is able to create some yards after the catch as well. So that's why I like Samuel the most. It gives you that savings and gives you that upside in there as well. So that's kind of where I'm sitting as a core. As my main core, I'm probably looking at that, but I think we can go a few other routes here. I think we can go, like I said, I like the Bears defense, which I think is fine running Samuel. I think he's going to get, 5-6 catches and be able to still get there with the Bears defense, who's probably going to get, let's say 2 to 3 sacks and maybe a turnover. And I think that's going to be enough for them to get there. They're not getting a lot of sacks lately, only 1 sack in each of the last 3 games, but they are creating a lot of turnovers here. So they're a decent floor, but against this Washington team with that win, I think they can create some early on in this game. Probably a little bit lower on the kickers, at least in the first half of the game. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with the wind or when it's going to change, so I'm not real sure if kickers are going to be the way to go or not. I think I'd rather go down, if you're looking for that savings, which I usually do in cash games, looking for a kicker to get 2 to 3 field goals, I'd probably just go with John Bates with Logan Thomas out. He is catching the ball close to the line scrimmage as well. He's probably going to be in that 3-4 target range, 3 catches, maybe in that 20 to 40 yard range. It's going to give you that 6 to 8 points, which at $3,000 I think is fine for cash games. Not a lot of upside there. If you're looking for that upside, I'd rather just go with, is he here? 200. Why can't I find him tonight? Cole Turner. I would probably just go with Cole Turner if you're looking for upside from the Washington tight end. And again, he's only 200. You get 2-3 catches out of him, and he's crushing that $200 price tag. So that's probably the way I'm going to go there. Monty or Jeff Wilson, Cade, I'm assuming that is a season-long question because Jeff Wilson doesn't play until the weekend. But yes, I'm going Montgomery. I think he's going to get a lot of volume. I think he's going to be in that 18 to 22 touches tonight. And although it is against Washington, who is tough against the run, I think there's just going to be enough volume there. I don't mind Jeff Wilson either, but again, you got to decide if I'm going to try and find that Jeff Wilson. I kind of hid all the main slate stuff here, but I will uncover that here just to answer your question for you. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. He's going up against Atlanta, 5.5 point favorite. Atlanta, yeah, I'm going to change my mind there. If that is a season question, yeah, I would probably, if that is your only decision is Monty or Jeff Wilson, I would probably go with Jeff Wilson. He's not going to have to deal with a tough Washington rush defense, and he's got a better matchup against Atlanta as a 5.5 point favorite. So yes, I would go Jeff Wilson in that situation. Thanks for the update there, Kenny. We've got 15 mile an hour, 8 to 10, until 8 to 10, and then drops closer to 10 mile an hour after that. Yeah, so third quarter, fourth quarter, I think we can get, a little bit more throwing. Chicago gets out ahead early. I think we may see some Wentz, a little bit more upside created in the second half, but I don't think we're going to see that in the first half. I'm still sitting with Curtis Samuel as my top captain tonight. Mike G, thanks for coming in, buddy. Appreciate it. So let's look at some other plays here. At wide receiver, a couple guys that we maybe didn't talk about. Dynami Brown, again, is going to be a little bit lower on my list just simply because I think it feels like we're really chasing points from last week. Not really that reliable. And again, he's a deep ball guy. Probably not going to see a lot of those tonight. Maybe deep in the second half, get some garbage time type stuff, but we're going to have to wait and see there. So that's kind of the way I'm sitting there. Now, on the prop side of things, I've got some written down here. I've got betting and PrizePicks going here. So Justin Fields, 169.5 on CoolBet. That's the site that I bet on. And he's 165.5 passing yards on PrizePicks. He's gone over in 2 straight. Washington is 29th in DVOA versus the pass, and they're allowing 235 yards per game. I think this is a game where Justin Fields is going to go over that 169. Now, he doesn't have to have a big game to hit this over. 170 yards, and he's there. And that, not a great fantasy day by any means, but in terms of props, I'm okay there. Now, Carson Wentz, it's going to be a little bit closer, but 218.5 seems pretty low for him. He is the same on the CoolBet betting site as well as PrizePicks. I like the over. He's exceeded 300 in three of his last 5 games. 3 of 5 games. It's only played 5. Tougher matchup as Chicago is allowing just 196 per game, but they've given up 296 to Kirk Cousins, 205 to Davis Mills, and 234 to Aaron Rodgers. They really shut down Daniel Jones, but in that game, he only threw the ball 13 times. So that's a tough one to really look at. That was Saquon Barkley that really took over that game with 135 yards or something right around there. He had a really big game there. So they didn't really, Daniel Jones didn't really need to throw. So Chicago, that really suppressed that Chicago 196 per game. So 218, I think Wentz can get over, especially I kind of feeling like Chicago is going to be in the lead in the second half. And like I said, if the wind is going down, we're probably going to see Carson throw like he always does. He's not afraid to throw. He may not be throwing the deep balls much, but if he does complete 1 or 2 of those deep balls to say Terry McLaurin or Dynami Brown, whatever, then, that could help his yardage out. But 218 is really not a really high number. So I do like the over on Wentz there. Also, Carson Wentz, 10.5 rushing yards. Now, this is one I do like. One with the win, the bicep issue. He's gone over in 4 or 5 games of the rushing yards. Chicago's allowed the second most rush yards to quarterback, 33.2 per game. And the Vegas lines have it set currently at 11.5 yards with heavy juice to the over at minus 135. So everything's kind of leaning to a nice over there on PrizePicks for Carson Wentz. Up next is Darnell Mooney, 43.5 receiving yards. He's gone over in back-to-back games with 52 and 94 yards, 5+ targets in 3 straight. Washington's given up the 4th most reception yards to wide receivers, 190 per game. And where I found that, if you go on the cheat sheet here, go to defense versus position, we slide this over to wide receivers. We can see Washington here, and we go and we'll just sort that highest to lowest. 4th most receiving yards to wide receivers, a 15.1 yards per catch and a 61% catch rate, 29th in fantasy points to wide receivers. So that lines up nice for Mooney. What else do we have in here? Vegas has that line set at 45.5, which is 2 yards higher with the juice again on the over at -119. So everything's kind of lining up there for Mooney to hit that over at 43.5. Terry McLaurin, 4 receptions. He's had 4 or more in 3 of his last 4 games. He had 5 last game when Dotson was out of the lineup. Also, there's no Logan Thomas tonight. Vegas has that one set at 3.5 receptions with the over at -175. So heavy juice on the over there. So again, it all lines up nice as a nice value on PrizePicks. And then my final one, J.D. McKissic, which seems a little risky because Brian Robinson is named the starter. You still got Antonio Gibson in the mix. But like I said, McKissic is still going to be involved in the passing game. He's had 3 or more receptions in all 5 games this season. So he's at least, that's going to be a push at 3, but he's had 3 or more in all 5 or more in 3 of those games. So he's hit the over in 3 of 5. He had 5 last week when Robinson was, back in the lineup. He didn't have the biggest of roles yet, but he was still a viable option there. Vegas has the line set at 2.5 with the over at -152. So we got, again, that lining up. So that's kind of where I'm looking for PrizePicks. You can pick 5 of those in there if you want. And if you're new to PrizePicks, you can head over to prizepicks.com and you can use our, Dane, late as heck. Hey, don't worry about it. I've already talked about your guy. Get him in your lineups. I put him in my rankings. He's a little bit lower, Cole Turner, but he's $200 on DraftKings. Makes a lot of sense as a punt play, even in cash games, because I think, he goes ahead and gets 2 catches for 15 yards. That's going to be enough, especially in cash. And then he's got a ton of upside at only $200. If he gets in that 30, 40 yard range and like 3 catches, he's going to be crushing that $200 price tag tonight. So Dane, that's your guy. Don't worry about it. I mentioned him for you. You brought him up earlier today. Made sure to do my research on him. Okay, so back over to PrizePicks. Use the promo code Jaeger and you will get 100% deposit match up to $100. And what it is it's just props, just like you said, and you can go ahead and parlay these props, which you can't do on the betting site. So if you're in a state that doesn't allow sports betting, PrizePicks is a perfect solution to go ahead and give it a try. And again, use promo code Jaeger and get yourself a deposit match 100% up to $100. So that pretty much covers my plays. We'll go have one more look here at the DFSR tool. Over on DraftKings, if you want to lock multiple players, what I'm probably going to do here, I want to lock in Fields. Let's lock in Darnell Mooney, Samuel as captain, and we're going to run that and just see where that brings us. Then we get in the Washington defense a little bit. Now, if we get rid of the Washington defense, we start getting into Dax Milne. So I'm not really too much into that. So right now, Samuel is definitely going to be up there for me. We're going to put in Cole Turner, just that punt play. I think that makes a lot of sense there. Fields, Montgomery, and then you can go Wentz, and then you can even go McKissic if you want. Or if you want to get rid of Montgomery and go Mooney, Fields and Mooney as your 2 Chicago guys there. But personally, I think it's Montgomery that I want to go with. But if you do go Mooney, then you can go up and you can go Terry McLaurin here as well. So you got Samuel, Wentz. So you got Wentz, 3 of his pass catchers. 1 is a punt play, obviously. But then you got Fields and Mooney. A little bit more passing than I would probably like, but that's another route that you can go. Probably going to finalize this, but still, no matter which way I plan on going here, this is going to be my core, is Curtis Samuel at captain, Justin Fields in there as a running quarterback, Cole Turner as your punt play. And then there's many different ways that you can go tonight. Kenny loves them too. So that is all 3 of us, Jaeger Bombs Fantasy Sports guys, liking the punt play with Cole Turner tonight. Give the man 3 to 4 catches and 40 yards, and I'll just be singing all night long. I'll maybe even go live again to sing you guys a song. We'll see. So we got game time coming up here in 36 minutes. So I'm going to log off. Thank you for all tuning in. Looks like we had 13, 14 people live. That's awesome. If you guys like this show, talking props, talking bets, talking everything Showdown, everything primetime football, I will bring the show back for Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and then we'll go into next week as well. Really enjoy doing these shows. Love when you guys interact and chat. So let's keep it up. And I will see you guys Sunday morning for the NFL live show, the NASCAR live show, and then NASCAR Sunday, I think. Yep. And then we'll do a Sunday night football show and a Monday night football show. Cheers and enjoy watching the game. Good luck, everyone.